How you doing, guys? Big Mech Dance School here again today, back once again with another video in my Conquest series for you. Today we're going to be playing through Replay Tutorial Mission 9. Smite the Blight-hauler! Okay, so Tutorial Replay Mission 9, Smite the Blight-hauler. The goals for this mission are quite simple. The sides are, as you see set in front of you, we have our first vehicle unit here in the Mephitic Blight-hauler for the Death Guard. That is the only vehicle, only unit for the Death Guard in this mission. And on the other side we have a Primaris Librarian and 3 Primaris Reivers. The goal for the Death Guard side is to eliminate the Librarian. The goal for the Imperial Fist side is to eliminate the Mephitic Blight-hauler. So it's kill or be killed for the Librarian and the Blight-hauler. Yeah, so it's 10 wounds in total, I think, for the wounds 5. So no, it's 11 wounds in total for the Primaris side, the Space Marine side or Imperial Fist side, and for the Death Guard side it's 8 wounds in total, because that's how many wounds the Mephitic Blight-hauler's got. I'm going to be using extra rules and some newer rules as well for the Space Marines, in particular for the Primaris Librarian. Just flicking over to the mission page here, we've got a Force Sword upgrade. It now does D6 damage to the Force Sword. It now does D3 damage to the Force Sword, and the Smite psychic power that the Librarian can cast in the psychic phase. If you roll a casting roll of 10 or more, then it does D6 damage instead of D3. The Mephitic Blight-hauler has a range of weapons. One of them is the Bile Spurt, which is like a spurt of foul vomit sort of stuff. It's contagious fluid that comes out of its maw. The Bile Spurt is a 12-inch range attack. It does D3 shots, wounds on a 3+, the enemy saves on a 4+, and it's a single damage weapon. We also have the Multi-melter, which is a single shot weapon, does D6 damage if it wounds. It wounds on a 2+ and there's no enemy save. We also have some frag missiles over on this side, which are very similar to the frag grenades we've seen on previous missions. So let's go table down, crack on with the mission, and then we'll see how it all unfolds, shall we? Place your bets now in the comments section to see who you think will win, the Death Guard or the Imperial Fists. So you can see the two forces a little more closely there. We have the Reivers and Primaris Librarian on the right hand side of the screen, and we have the Mephitic Blight-hauler on the left hand side of the screen. They will of course be swapping ends before the battle starts, because we've got the Death Guard deployment zone down this end. The Mephitic Blight-hauler will be deploying in the middle, and the Reivers, the Imperial Fist forces, will be deploying down this end in the usual way, so they'll get to choose which deployment zone they deploy on. I'll roll to see who deploys first, but I don't think it's going to make an awful lot of difference if I'm honest. But as always, the Death Guard are the green dice and the pearlescent dice are the Imperial Fists. The Death Guard deploy first. As you can see, the forces have deployed, as you can see in front of you. I can't get my words out right, as always, but basically I've tried to hide the Space Marine forces behind this container here, so when the Death Guard unit moves, it's less likely to be able to draw a line of sight. I'll come back after Death Guard movement in the first turn and see if we can get any shots off. As you can see, the Death Guard Mephitic Blight-hauler can just about draw a line of sight to this Librarian here. Unfortunate. I'll try and move this dice tray, see if we can get a view from down there. Oh, actually, you know what? Oh, it does just, you can just see part of that wheel arch on the Mephitic Blight-hauler. So for me, it does draw a line of sight there. It's pretty close, but it will actually be able to get some shots off on the Librarian, which is very bad planning on my part as the Imperial Fist player. So I'll get the dice now and start rolling them, shall I? I'll start with a melter gun on the Mephitic Blight-hauler. He is going to hit with the melter gun on 4s. Hits. He's going to wound on 2s. Oh, fails to wound. That's a lucky escape for the Librarian there, because that would have been a high damage shot there. Then we'll go with the frag grenades. Or frag missiles, rather. So the missiles are a D6 attack weapon. That is 2 attacks only. It's going to wound on a 5+, but we need to roll to hit first, so they're going to hit on 4+. 1 hits, wounds on a 5, fails to wound. And then we're going to measure to see if we're in range for the Bile Spurt, which is a 12-inch range weapon. Yeah, within range there. Interestingly, in this mission, the Bile Spurt has a range, but none of the other weapons have a range so far. Just sort of point that out. It's a little oversight, perhaps, on the part of the people behind Conquest. Anyway, the Bile Spurt is a D3 weapon, so it gets D3 shots, meaning we roll a dice and we half that number, rounding up, so it gets 2 shots in this case. 2 shots, they are going to hit on 4s. Both hit. And they're going to wound on 3s. It's quite a strong weapon. 1 wound, and the Librarian needs to save on a 4+. I'll get his dice rather than the Death Guard one. Fails that save, so he takes a wound. So as we see, 1 wound on the Librarian there at the end of Death Guard turn 1. We'll now move on to Imperial Fist turn 1, and I'll come back after movement. So as you can see, the Imperial Fists have moved up the field of battle now. The Librarian is going to cast his Smite Psychic power in the Psychic phase. So he's going to need 2 dice for that. And it's a Psychic charge value of 5. We'll see if he can get that. Oh, fails it. Absolute disaster there. The Librarian, of course, also has the Might of Heroes psychic power, meaning, well, not meaning anything. he can cast that on a 6 up. With 2 dice, we're going to try again for this one. He's going to be casting it on himself, by the way. And that is a... Whoa, that is an 11. Almost a perils there. But fantastic. We could have done with that roll on the Smite, because it would have been D6 mortal wounds to the Blight-hauler. However, he's cast it on himself, and that means he gets 2 extra attacks in close combat now. We will go on to the shooting phase for the Imperial Fists. And the Reivers will shoot first with the bolt pistols. I'll tell you what, they'll all shoot with the bolt pistols, including the Librarian. They're going to hit on 3s. Oh my word, that's really bad. They're going to wound on 5s. Fails to wound. No problem there. So now we'll go on to the charge phase. And the Reivers will charge first, meaning the Blight-hauler will get to fire Overwatch. I was trying to get them into a position round here where the Blight-hauler couldn't see them, but couldn't quite hide them. There wasn't quite enough space for them to get round, and they didn't quite have enough movement. So the Blight-hauler will now fire Overwatch. We'll start with the Melter Gun, hitting on 6s. Fails to hit. Then we're going to the Blight Spewer. D3 shots. That is 3 shots. It's going to be hitting on 6s. No 6s there. And then we'll go on to the Missile Launcher. D6 shots. 3 shots again. Handy because I've got 3 dice here hitting on 6s. No 6s. So, now it's on to the charge roll. I've measured it already. It's a 6-inch charge. Oh, I'll just double check actually. It could have been 5-inch. Let's double check that. No, it is a 5-inch charge. So they need a 5 or more to get into combat. They get a 10. Fantastic. So now they'll charge up. First guy in there. Second one there. And the third one around there. And then the Librarian's going to charge in as well. He just needs to make his charge roll. I'll measure that distance. That is a 6-inch charge for the Librarian. Oh, is it 6 or is it 7? No, it's a 7-inch charge for the Librarian. Oh, it might be 8 actually. No, it's 7 because he only needs to get within an inch, doesn't he? So it's a 7-inch charge for the Librarian. Let's see if he makes it now. Otherwise, that hammer hand will have been wasted. Oh, makes it with an 8-inch charge there. Fantastic. So we'll move on to the combat phase next. And yeah, I'll come back with some dice rolls for you. So the Reivers get 9 attacks in total. I was looking in the rules to see if it said the Sergeant gets an extra attack yet. But I can't find it in the rules where it says the Sergeant gets an extra attack. I'm wondering if it's just the Death Guard Sergeants that have had the extra attack so far. So I'm only going to roll 9 dice, but correct me if I'm wrong if I've already been playing. that the sergeant gets an extra attack. So it's 9 attacks in total for the Imperial Fists. I'll just drop one there, and they're going to hit on 3s. That is all but 2 hits. They're going to need 5s to wound. It's got 8 wounds in total, so they can't take it out of action here. Eight wounds, 5s to wound rather. That is 1, 2, 3 wounds taken. However, it does of course get its armour save. And its armour save is 3 up, so 3 or more to make the save here. All save, so no disgusting and resilience needs to be rolled there. Now it's on to the Librarian with his extra attacks. I'll work out how many he's got and then come back with the dice. So because of Might of Heroes, the Librarian now gets 6 attacks. 2 extra for Might of Heroes and 4 rather as standard. So he's going to hit on 3s. I'll just double check that and come back. Yeah, so I was right there. The Librarian hits on 3s. I couldn't remember if the Lieutenant and the Librarian both hit on 2s in close combat, but the Librarian hits on 3s. So he's going to hit on 3s. 3 or more here. We've got 2 misses. That is perfectly statistically correct. And then we've got he's going to wound on 5 or more. That is 1 wound only, but the Death Guard model will only save on a 6 up. Fails a save. He does get his Disgusting and Resilient, but it's a D3 damage weapon, so we'll roll to see how many damage it does first of all. 5, so that is 3 damage in total, meaning he gets to roll 3 Disgusting and Resilient, so he needs 5 or more to stop those wounds being stripped off. He gets 1 5, so he loses 2 wounds, so he's down to 6 wounds now. I'll grab him a wound marker and then come back with his attacks. So I've just placed a couple of wound markers here. I've switched the Librarian's single coin out for a dice, just to make sure that we are on parity there with in terms of the wound markers. So rather than count up the wounds with the Librarian and count down with the Blight-hauler, I want to be doing it the same way. So 6 wounds left on the Blight-hauler and 4 wounds left on the Librarian. Okay, now back onto the Blight-hauler's attacks. He gets 3 attacks and he's going to be hitting on 4s. He is going to attack. Well, he's going to attack the Librarian. There's no point attacking the Reivers, is there, if he's got to take out the Librarian? He's hitting on 4s. He gets 2 hits. He needs 3 or more to wound. 1 wound. And the enemy has to save on a 5 or more. Fails a save, so the Librarian now is down to 3 wounds. It could be interesting going into the next round. So, on to Death Guard turn 2 now. So straight on to Death Guard turn 2. He's going to attack the Librarian again. Going to be hitting on 3s. 4s rather. 2 hits again. He's going to be wounding on 3s. 1 wound again. It's going to be a 5 up save from the Librarian. Oh, Librarian fails another save. So he's now down to 2 wounds. Only 2 wounds remaining for that Librarian. It's going to be interesting to see how the Imperial Fist player approaches this in the next turn. I'll come back with some attacks for the Imperial Fist perhaps. We'll see. Sorry, yeah, I'm going to be coming back straight away with the Imperial Fist attacks, because this is the Death Guard turn, of course, where the Imperial Fist get to attack back. So it's going to be 9 attacks first off for the Reivers. And they're going to be hitting on 3s. Picking up all the dice there. So 9 attacks for the Reivers, hitting on 3s. It's a fair amount of hits, sorry. 6 hits in total. And they are going to be wounding on 5s. So they're going to be wounding on 5s now. 2 wounds there, and it's going to be a 3 up save for, or 2 3-up saves for the Blight-hauler. 1 failed, so he needs a Disgusting Resilient of 5 up, or he takes another wound. He takes another wound. He's down to 5 now. So it's on to the Librarian's attacks in close combat. I just double checked the wording on Might of Heroes, and it says the Librarian, or whoever the power is cast on, gets 2 extra attacks until the start of the next psychic phase. Now, the Librarian is the only psychic model in the game, but the Death Guard do still get a psychic phase, so there has been a psychic phase prior to this combat continuing in this Death Guard turn 2. So there has been a psychic phase, so we will only get 4 attacks a Librarian. I'll roll them now for you. He's going to be hitting on 3s. Oh my word, 2 hits. And he's going to be wounded on 5s. That is 1 wound. I've just remembered as well, I've not done the shooting attacks. Oh no, it's the Death Guard turn anyway. So that's 1 wound. It's going to do... it's going to be a 6-up save for the Mephitic Blight-hauler. Fails that. It's going to do D3 damage. Just 1. The Blight-hauler will roll a Disgusting and Resilient. Oh, it makes a Disgusting and Resilient, so he's still on 5 wounds, going into Imperial Fists turn 2. Just been thinking tactically what the best thing to do here is. If the Librarian stays in combat, he's going to be taking the attacks from the Blight-hauler. So the best thing to do for the Librarian is fall back out of combat, make his smite attacks as normal, shooting attacks, etc., and just leave the Reivers locked in combat with the Blight-hauler. So it has to choose whether it wants to fall back or not. So I'll come back after movement, after the Librarian's fallen back. As you can see now, the Librarian's fallen back and it's onto the Psychic phase. So he's going to cast, first of all, the Smite Psychic power, and it's going to be cast on a 5 or more. Again, fails Smite, and there's a double 1 roll there, which I think might be a Perils. I'll double check that. Double check the rules, and a double 1 is classed as a Perils of the Warp. Now, what Perils of the Warp is, basically, when a Psyker in the 41st Millennium uses their psychic ability, they're channeling the power of the Warp, and the Warp is like a chaotic other realm, etheric realm, and the energies in there, there's not just energies in there, there's also entities in there, demonic entities, and a double 1 or a double 6 basically brings them into this realm, and they try and tear at the Psyker's soul. So the Psyker takes D3 mortal wounds now. If I roll a 3, then that's bad news for the Psyker because he's dead and the Death Guard have won the game. However, I might not roll a 3, so let's check. I might roll a 1. If I roll anything other than a 1 or a 2 on a D6 dice, then he's going to be dead. It's a 1, so he's safe-ish. He's down to 1 wound, and he doesn't die, thankfully, for the Imperial Fists. However, he does get to roll cast another psychic power if he wants to, and he's going to cast Might of Heroes onto one of these Reivers here. It doesn't really matter which. There's just going to be extra attacks for the Reivers. So he needs a 6 or more to do that, and he fails it anyway, rolling dangerously close to a double 1 there again. A double 1 or a double 6 is a Perils of the Warp. So yeah, now onto the shooting phase. The Imperial Fists will all shoot with their pistols in close combat, because you can do that with pistols. They're going to hit on 3s. 1 fails. They're going to wound on 5s. 2 wounds, amazing. 2 3-up saves for the Blight-hauler though. 1 failed, so we need a Disgusting and Resilient of a 5 or more. Failed, so he's down to 4 wounds anyway. Ooh, swinging back and forth this. Let's see now if, in close combat, the extra attacks make the difference there. So it's going to be 3 attacks each for the Reivers, plus 2 extras, so it's 11 attacks in total, and I'll come back when I'm rolling the dice. So 11 attacks with those combat knives. Let's see what they can do. They're going to be hitting on 3s. Oh, they missed 1, 2, just 2 misses there, so that's 9 hits. And they are going to be wounding on 5s. See how many they can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 wounds there. It's enough to kill him if he doesn't make his saving throws. The Blight-hauler does, of course, get his 3-up saves, so let's see if he can do any of them. He fails one of them, so now he gets to roll a disgusting resilient for that failed save. 5 or more and he's okay still. It's a 1, so it's another wound taken. Another 2 wounds stripped off in turn 2 for the Imperial Fist there. Oh, no, he's not down to that many, he's down to that many. So he's down to 3 wounds now. The Librarian's down to 1 wound. Let's see what happens in Death Guard turn 3. No, not just yet, because of course the Blight-hauler gets to attack back, which I almost forgot there. He gets 3 attacks. Straight over to the dice tray here, no messing about. 3 attacks. Going to be hitting on 4s. 2 fail to hit there, that's a 1 and a 3. It's going to be wounding on 3s. Wounds. And it's going to be a 5-up save. Or a 4-up save rather, for the Reaver. Saved. So it's on to Death Guard turn 3 now. Let's change that, shall we? Bang, boom, bang. I don't know what to do with this Mephitic Blight-hauler. Should I move him out of combat? The Reivers will just charge him again, probably if I do, so he may as well stay in combat. However, he can't get to the Librarian if he does stay in combat. So I think he has to move out of combat now. So try to think tactically as a Death Guard player. I've been wondering whether I should fall back with the Blight-hauler or not. He can get to about here if he falls back. But unfortunately, that's not far enough to stay out of the Reivers' charge zone, because they're going to be able to move to about here in their next turn, and that's going to give them a 2-inch charge, so it's an unfailable charge. If he does that, though, he does get to fire Overwatch. But he's not likely to be able to take out all of the Reivers. However, he only gets 3 attacks in close combat, so I think what I'm going to do is fall back and hope that he manages to take some of them out, because he can do more or less as much damage in Overwatch if he gets some 6s in Overwatch as he can do in the combat phase, because he can only take out like 1.5 of them in the combat phase. He can only take 3 wounds per combat phase. So I'm going to move him to here in the hope that it makes a difference. No, tell you what, I'm going to keep him in combat. I've decided. I'm going to keep him in combat because he can take, of course, 3 wounds off them in his turn and then 3 wounds off them in their turn as well. So yeah, I'm going to keep him in combat. So now he's going to get 3 attacks and they're going to hit on 4s. And of course, all 3 miss. Now I've decided to keep him in combat. So that's a disastrous turn there for the Blight-hauler. So it's on to Imperial Fist's turn 3 now. And I'm going to keep everyone where they are. The Librarian is going to go straight into the psychic phase. He's going to try and cast Smite again. Let's see if he can do it without getting a Perils of the Warp. 5 or more. Oh, he finally casts, and it's a 10. Meaning, if you roll a 10 or more to cast Smite, you actually get D6 wounds instead of D3 mortal wounds on the affected unit. So, there's a high likelihood the Imperial Fist could take out the Blight-hauler here. So, it's D6 mortal wounds. 5 mortal wounds on the Mephitic Blight-hauler. It appears I've been misreading the rules for Smite. It's if you roll a 5 to 10, you get the psychic power off as normal. If you roll an 11 or 12, you get the D6 mortal wounds instead of D3. However, it does get D3 mortal wounds, and as I rolled a 5, it's still 3 wounds, so it's enough to kill the Blight-hauler. However, the Blight-hauler can still save its stealth here if it rolls Disgusting and Resilient. So he's got 3 chances to save himself. He just needs to roll 1 5 or more, and he'll still be alive for the rest of the turn at least, or until he takes some more wounds from someone else. So let's see if he can roll any 5-ups. 5 or 6 we're looking for. 1 6, so that is a 1 wound Mephitic Blight-hauler there. He's got 1 wound remaining. But it is still Imperial Fist's turn here. So let's move on to the shooting phase. Or I could cast another psychic power with the Librarian. It would run the risk of him losing that final wound. I could just rely on the Reivers. What I'm going to do is not take that risk. I'm going to choose to not cast Might of Heroes onto one of these, because I think the 2 extra attacks aren't really worth the risk of taking a mortal wound on the Librarian. They get 9 attacks as standard, and they also get 3 shooting attacks as well, so that should be enough to take out the Blight-hauler, but it remains to be seen. So I'll move on to the shooting phase for the Imperial Fists. They're going to get 3 shooting attacks with the pistols into the Mephitic Blight-hauler. They get 3 hits, and they're going to wound on 5s. Two wounds, so that is 2 3-up saves for the Blight-hauler. Both saved there, no problem for that one. And it's going to be 9 attacks in close combat. I'll come back when I've got the dice. So 9 attacks in close combat, hitting on 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits. Get rid of them. And it's going to be wounding on 5s. So wounding on 5s, let's see how many we get. 1, 2, 3 wounds. It's 3 3-up saves for the Mephitic Blight-hauler. Oh, Gregorian. 3-up saves. See how many we can make. Oh, failed 1 save there, that's 2. So it's a disgustingly resilient roll now for the Mephitic Blight-hauler, or it will be destroyed. Can he get 5 or more? Fails it! So the Mephitic Blight-hauler is removed to 0 wounds and removed from play. The mission is complete, and it's an Imperial Fists victory. That's 2 weeks in a row. That's 2 weeks in a row for the Imperial Fists have managed to seal the victory, and it's by turn 3 this time. There you have it, guys. Another Imperial Fist victory after going for what seemed like an age without a victory. They've got 2 in a row now. It's interesting to see the way this swings back and forth. This could have gone either way, this particular mission, especially when we got that Perils of the Warp roll for the Librarian. It could have been taken out in that turn, and it would have been a Death Guard victory instead of an Imperial Fist victory. But yeah, it went in the end for the Imperial Fist. It was a tricky one to judge, I think, at the start of the mission. But once the Reivers tied up the Mephitic Blight-hauler in combat, it was going to be tricky. I realised I had to take the Librarian out of combat because the Mephitic Blight-hauler, because the Librarian is a separate unit from the Reivers, the Mephitic Blight-hauler chooses which units to attack in close combat. So all of his attacks were always going to go on the Librarian, and he's quite reliably, he's got a 50-50 chance of getting a hit first of all, so you're getting 1.5 hits per turn. He's quite reliably hitting in close combat, and in terms of wounding, the wounding on a 3-up, and it's a 5-up save for the Space Marine player. So it's a -2 armor penetration value basically on the gnashing jaws or whatever they're called. So it's a tricky one for a Space Marine player to remain in combat with. But yeah, I decided to fall back with the Librarian and then just cast the psychic powers, leaving the Blight-hauler in combat. Had the Blight-hauler fallen back himself, come round the container, he would have then just been charged again by the Reivers. And realistically, I didn't think that was a good option. I thought it was better to stay in combat. Of course, I got no hits that turn in combat when I chose not to fall back. I think it was turn 3, Death Guard turn 3. I chose not to fall back with the Blight-hauler, and I rolled 3 3s on the dice. You know, the dice were really balancing themselves out because they'd rolled quite high in combat for the Blight-hauler then, I felt. They'd rolled at least 2 hits each turn prior, I think. So, yeah, it was an interesting one, and another good victory for the Imperial Fists. Next week, we're going to see some aggressors in action, some heavy infantry coming into play here, and they're going to be taking on some Poxwalkers and Death Guard Plague Marines. So, yeah, make sure you stay tuned. Let me know in the comments below whether you predicted this right from the start. If you predicted it before the battle started, of course, I'll have already seen those comments, so thank you very much for those. Before you go, don't forget to give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Any questions you've got, you can ask in the comments below. There's a button here for you to subscribe if you've not already done so, and a Patreon link here if you'd like to support the channel. There's also a couple of videos here for you to check out at your leisure. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.